Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on this fine, beautiful Sunday to the Vincent Charles Project. Finally, again, after a week's vacation, well, not really a vacation, I had personal things that needed taken care of. But joining me this evening is my wonderful, vivacious co host, Auntie Vodka.
Hello, darlings.
Hello, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I am out fucking standing because we're on the go.
Fantastic.
And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our guest for the evening, the celebrated author and wordsmith, Miss Janie Mack. Janie,
Hi, I'm glad to
well,
be here.
welcome to the show, Janie. And I'm glad you agreed to come on here because so few people do. And
Honey, how did you lure her in? What'd you have to, what'd you use for bait?
my firstborn child. But that's not important right now. So, Janie, what's
Yes.
happening? What's going on with you?
Well, let's see. I just finished writing my last book, so now I'm going to try and explore the world of self-publishing. So I've been traditionally published in the past, and now I'm going to give it a whirl on my own and see what happens.
Okay, what does that entail exactly? I mean, with regard to doing it yourself as opposed to going through a publishing house.
Well, I'm not exactly sure. No,
Okay.
there's ways of. It's very fragmented. So it's an interesting process because um, publishing is changing so fast, and so when you sell your book to a traditional publisher, they buy it for X amount of years, whatever, and with an option to continue on and that kind of thing, depending on how much you're selling, depending on your royalties, all that. And so what happens is they put your book out in catalogs that go to libraries and bookstores, and they push you real hard, pay for a couple industry reviews, and can help you get into libraries, that kind of thing. And so that's awesome. And then that's it. And so you get that little initial bump, and then it's just dead air. And then your next book comes out, and then it's kind of the same thing. And so the interesting thing is that a lot of my contemporaries who have been traditionally published are now publishing on their own because as people still come across them online and in social media, that's the people that go buy their books, and now they're buying them. So basically, it's like you can kind of sell your own books more because you'll be advertising them more often than you would be with a traditional publishing house. So that's what I'm going to give it a whirl now. I mean,
Okay.
I think I kind of went in the weeds there, so sorry about that.
No, 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 not at all. That's
Are you finding it more challenging um, than traditional publishing, the sort of brave new world of, having to, I mean, because ostensibly it becomes a thing where you have to kind of do your own marketing. You have to come up with your own content and sort of ride that social media horse, if
Right.
I'm looking at it correctly.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, is that when I signed up with Kensington, they were like, okay, what's your website? Where are your social media channels? If you want to do PR tours, that's mostly on the writers anyway. So unless you're like, one of the crazy super advanced people, like a celebrity that has another layer of context that will make people automatically buy the book whether they read it or not, like a Kardashian kind of thing. There is that, I guess, space where you still have to promote yourself, and then you're paying the publisher to carry your book. If that makes sense. So that's why a lot of people who are kind of in my spot, where they have the street cred of being traditionally published, since they're already doing their own PR, then they get to keep more of the royalties of the book. So that's kind of it's a crazy situation. Like publishing is one of the few industries left where you'll have a bookstore that'll order 100 books from you, the publisher. The publisher will sell them the 100 books, except they're sold on a commission base. So if the bookstore says, yeah, I only sold 50, so then they can just return those other 50 back to the publishing house.
Ooh.
So they don't go on sale; they just get returned. So the 50 that get returned go against whatever you had sold prior. So like they go against your royalty numbers. Where
In what kind of situation does it happen where you end up in the bargain bin at Costco?
that I don't really know, because Costco is unlike any other normal retailer. They just buy things by the pallet. So it's, but like Barnes and Noble returns books. I would have said bookstore. I don't even know what bookstores even are out there anymore, except for small independents. And they still return books that they don't sell to publishers. So it's kind of an antiquated thought process for me in the first place, of the idea that you could return it rather than mark it down and sell it that way.
Yeah, especially when you look at it from, well, not really a historical perspective, but all three of us were roughly the same age. You can remember a time 35, 40 years ago, everybody went to a bookstore. There were bookstores all over the place. You had like Walden's, and you had Brentano's, and all of those places like that. And nowadays, you've got maybe a Barnes and Noble that's 30 miles away from you.
Yeah.
At a mall that's dying on the vine and is getting ready to close, something like that. And today, it's just everything's online. And yeah, it's convenient. Yeah, it's easy, but I don't know. To me, it takes away from the romance of it. I mean, if there is such a thing as romance with regards to publishing, which I highly doubt, but just to me, the difference between electronic books like the 50 or so I have in my iPhone versus the things that the books I can take off my shelf. To me, it feels more tangible and more real to me when I actually have a book in my hand. And I'm sure some people feel the same, but probably not.
I do. And here's another little tidbit I'll throw in there. When you publish just electronically, that allows whomever holds the reins, theoretically, to come in and make changes down the road. And maybe that's like an angle for people that are self-publishing, is to sort of extol the virtues of get just like with movies and music and everything. We all got away from physical media. Maybe it's time to sort of bring that back to life. I love paper books. I don't like ebooks. I don't read books on my tablet. I have like 9 boxes of books that I will not part with. And I mean, maybe that's an angle, be like, well, you can buy my book and they'll never be able to edit it. They'll never be able to change it. And you'll always have it. Even if the power goes out and the zombies come and the EMP thing, my book will always be there. If you light a candle, you can read my book.
If the EMP comes and I lose my Nero Wolfe cookbook, I'm gonna lose my shit.
I'm telling you, you need to print that out, homie.
Yeah, it's time. It's time to print it. It's a really interesting thing. Like even with Amazon, if you're going to try and choose high royalty, because Amazon right now does print on demand for the bulk of their independent writers, and Amazon owns some publishing companies in there too. So it's hard to figure out what's going on, and it's hard for readers because it's like they don't know if it's just some guy who wrote this book in his basement and hasn't had anybody look at it except his mother, and there's a million spelling errors in it, and stuff like that. There's like no guarantee that you can figure out from his book cover and his blurb, I guess, if he's kind of at that same level of, I don't know what you're expecting from Vince Flynn or Brad Thor or whoever. So that's a strange kind of piece that Amazon's promoting and fighting at the same time. And so, like, ebook wise, if you sell at the same tier, so say you sell your book for the same price electronically that a big guy like Brett Thor would do, Amazon will pay you markedly less royalties, which seems counterintuitive. And if you price your book within their little window, they'll give you higher royalties if you're independent. So it's like, but your book will be priced lower and therefore differently than traditionally published books. So a lot of more savvy readers are figuring that out. It is going to cost them, $19.99 versus $17.99 or whatever it is. It's a strange phenomenon. And then Kindle really wants, or Amazon, I guess, wants to put you into Kindle Unlimited, and that's a whole nightmare on its own to try and figure out. So that's the drag for any author, is trying to figure out where you're going to get paid and how, and kind of how many versions you have to have, and how many things that are set up for electronic or hardcover or softcover or print on demand, and it's so I don't know. I am just probably bombing your whole show right now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I wasn't like really thinking of this mentally, and then now I'm just talking about it and blabbering. And I'm not drinking, so that's probably not
Honey,
ideal.
we're all literally like walking blind through the woods with all this. This is like the third show. So yeah, just it's all good.
Yeah, this could be the one that gets lost in the archives that's never returns.
No, never dispose of your content.
No,
always save it, even if it's terrible or even if it's great.
So you can blackmail me later.
See, that's the thing with all this discussion over electronic books and audiobooks and stuff like that. I found a few websites that are looking for people to read them, and I've done a couple of audition recordings. I haven't sent them off yet. I was planning on doing that tomorrow, at least doing it during the week, and so who knows? One day I might actually get to read one of your books.
You both have great voices. You should, and
Do
also send me the link to
Andy,
that. I didn't realize
Andy,
anyone was
No,
looking for that.
I love you. I love you. I love you like an auntie that I love, but don't blow smoke up my ass, please.
Oh, honey, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's not me. I am not the person of the good voice. I know that to be true.
I find your voice actually very pleasant.
Aw.
And Vin, you're just like
He's like,
like
really?
a cup
I
of
think it's kind of annoying.
a cup of chamomile tea, very relaxing.
Oh my god!
Maybe we should just all do this. We should just read books to people.
Hey, if you'd like to do something like that, that's a conversation we can have.
Okay.
Right?
I can read instruction manuals, or I can read.
Oh, Vin will tell you. I love talking, and love reading stuff
How about
to
this?
people.
How about this? Step 1: peel back foil from tater tots. Step 2: no.
That's hot. Keep going. Keep going.
Preheat oven to 425.
Oh, see? Right there. Would you like to voice an audiobook?
Sure.
I'm
The
not
number
kidding.
you have reached.
So, Janie, we know
Yes.
you're an author,
Yes.
and I know what kind of books you write. So why don't you tell our audience, which is growing steadily as we speak, what books you prefer to write, what your genre is, what you've written?
Okay. I wrote a 3-book mystery series that kind of ended with a cliffhanger. And
You're not listening, right?
we good? Is that me messing
No,
up?
I'm
or no?
sorry.
Okay.
Vin, honey, mute your mic when you're talking to somebody else.
Okay. I wrote 3 mysteries, and that I got traditionally published, and then they wanted some more for me, but my dad was dying of cancer, and I just kind of couldn't do it without him around. And so I said I was going to be just kind of done. And then I met this guy on Twitter, and he sent me some direct messages asking me kind of like how I got to do this and would I take a look at an article that he was writing to help other people because he's on the law enforcement side of things. And he was writing an article for a writer's magazine, and I said, yeah, why don't you just call me? It's easier. I'm too old school to be texting back and forth. And so I kind of reviewed his article, and while we were chatting, he told me an idea that he had for a book, and he asked me when my next thing was coming out, and I said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. It was not, it's hard. It's hard when you lose somebody that is critical in your life. And he's like, no, I think you should do this. And then we kind of, thanks to him, we wrote a book together. So, and that's a thriller, and we were just about to release it during COVID, and then we took a step back. It's done. It's great. We love it. But neither one of us at the moment, we just had a lot of life stuff going on. So that's going to come out in September, and we are, I'd say, 2/3 done with the sequel to that. But that story is basically like
You two should maybe talk about doing an occasional space, and even if it's like 15 or 20 minutes, read a chapter from the book, talk about the process, and reach out to other people in your similar I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Box. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Twitter seems to be, it can be great or it can be terrible, but like it for finding like-minded people and putting out content to get yourself and your work seen. Like, I have found artists on Twitter and bought their creations, paintings really,
Yeah.
and I love them. It's I think it's we're moving into a new model of, well, we all better create content if we want to be seen and we want to garner an audience, because where are the eyeballs? They're not watching TV, they're not at the library, sadly. But so yeah, I don't know, maybe putting it out there, and something people can find and be like, oh, let me check that out.
Yeah, because Twitter isn't all about shit posting. I mean,
isn't it?
It is.
That's
it
why
is it is for me, but
yeah, no, I mean, so he and I are gonna pop that, I think, in September, end of September, and the book I just finished this last week is a solo project, and I'm so effing glad it's over with. And now I'm gonna have to, ramp up to do that one too. But yeah, I'm gonna self-publish that too. So it'll be interesting to see how it works, how the system works. I know a lot of authors who are doing really well that way, so I'm hoping I'll get to be one of those. So I don't know. I just feel like so off on this conversation.
No, not at all.
Like I know
We're just
more, like,
spitballing it.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting process, and for me, it's easy to write with another person, and it's easy to write on my own. I think after a while, you kind of get your own rhythm, and you figure out.
Yeah, I remember, attempting a project not long ago, and yeah, I can write, yeah, I can do this, but I think with me, it's not so much the writing that's difficult, because
You're a great writer.
Once you get into the flow, the next thing you know, you look and you've got 3,000 words on the page, and you're like, holy shit, it's 3 a.m. Oh, okay. But with me, it's more laziness with regard to composition. I think, yeah, I want to do it, but then I don't, is because I have to get myself in a certain mindset. And then, okay, I find that mindset, and then I go ahead and I start writing, and yeah. And then the next day, I'm like, oh, Jesus, no, not again. And
Well, yeah. I would just say you can never go back and read what you wrote. You got to like just power through that.
yeah, reading what I wrote, I'm like, did I actually? Yeah, no. Okay, rip everything up, start over again.
Yeah, you don't get real far when you keep doing that. I figured out eventually.
I wrote nonstop for about 20 years. And at this point, I'm like, well, maybe my kids will donate this to a Goodwill when I'm gone, and someone will be like, who's this crazy person who wrote 5,000 pages of random crap in their 20s, in the 90s? Like, wow, there, from the 5,000 pages, there might be 200 to 250 pages that are like filled with really good nuggets of stuff. I'm like, I'm tired. Someone else might really like it, but I'm
And then,
like,
and then the rest is just
Hey man,
1990,
that's a
yeah,
novella. You know.
and the rest
yeah,
of it is
or
just
however, I don't know
1990
how many.
shit posting in a composition book. That's
It
what
would
it
be
is.
great. I keep feeling like I might have missed the window though, or the window will open back up because everybody will be hungry for the 90s again, and eventually it will seem quaint and not so horribly painful, like, oh, look what we had and now we don't, and
No,
not to be a
I
buzzkill, you know.
never say never, because I saw something on television a couple of years ago. There was this guy who basically just farted around through life, doing odd jobs, working in a garage and doing retail and working in a grocery store. And finally, I think it was at the age of 45, he finally knuckled down and actually went to college. And he went to med school and he got his medical degree. And I think, where the hell was he working? I think he was working in the emergency room at some hospital in Seattle. So he's like, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm like, well, good that you can do it, because I'm too fucking lazy to do it.
Yeah, that I'm not interested in.
Like, good on you, brother. It ain't me. It ain't me.
I'm tired, man. I got enough going on. Like,
Yeah.
sure, I'd love to go be a, eventually an 80-year-old lawyer. That'd be great. But yeah, kind of tired. So I don't know.
Well, that
Maybe my best hope is I'll dig into that bucket of written crap and be like, well, let's
You
type
well,
see,
this all out until my hands seize up.
my luck, I would do the same thing. I would wait until I was like 75, 80 years old, if I lived that long. But
that's
and then finally, write something, and then, oh my god, it's a bestseller. It's 5 million copies sold, and then, you know, everyone's like, when's the next book coming out? And then right in the middle of my interview, I fucking have a major blowout of the O-ring, and I die right there during the
Dude,
interview.
it's literally that song. Isn't it ironic? You won the lottery and then you croaked. Oh, you finally looked at all the crap you wrote, and someone was like, this would make an amazing screenplay. Oops. Well, now I have dementia.
Uh, please, I
Make
have
sure you get lawyers, though, and get your rights all squared away so at least your family can benefit from your toil. Let someone get the royalties, right?
exactly. Like, is this shooting pain I'm having right now in my left arm? Is that something?
Should I be worried about that? Kids, get mommy's lawyer on the phone. Gotta sign that paperwork for
just
all of my intellectual property.
just
Because I'm leaving it to the dogs.
Yeah, someone should get it.
keep eating. When the left arm goes numb, yum yum yum. Just power through it.
Hey, somebody found that gal's diary in a Goodwill or something. I mean, look where how crazy that went. I don't know. You never know. I lost a bunch of written stuff on a plane back from Spain. I'm like, Somebody who used to work on the tarmac at JFK found like 3 years of my life, and I'm like, it probably ended up in a dumpster.
No, or they probably wrote about it, changed a few things, and made
I don't know.
quite a lot of
I'm
money.
like, maybe there's a reason those years disappeared. I don't know if they were great, but
I
Oh,
don't
dude,
know.
half of those years I can't even fucking remember.
But do
Seriously.
we want to remember them?
I can't remember my last 2 years of high school because I discovered dope. And and then after that I went into the army. Well, you can't smoke dope. Well, I can drink, can I? Yeah, sure can. Okay, I'm on it. And yeah, it was only until a few years ago I was a really serious drinker. And up until about maybe 3.5, 4 years ago, I just started pulling way back on it. I have maybe two, three glasses a day of wine every other day, and that's about it. But before ugh, don't even get me started. I was a sergeant twice. That tells you how the drinking got to me.
did you forget you were a sergeant the first time and then you just repeated the process and oh, here
Uh,
I am again? Like
It's
how'd
kind of
that
like your
go?
diaries are coming up.
I don't even remember what I did. I think I was drunk, and I think I took a swing at somebody, and I think I missed. But
Whoops.
that swing started a chain reaction of other swings from other people. So yeah, a lot of people got pulled in on that one. But yeah, I was the one who caught it in the ass. Reduction of pay, reduction of rank, extra duty, extra duty.
It
I was
didn't look like that on Stripes, though.
no, it never does.
It looks so fun. Oh man.
So like how'd you get started with all the book writing and authoring and whatnot? Like is that what you always wanted to do?
No, no. I had a
No.
no.
Why didn't I just become a freaking painter?
I'm 57 years old, and I still don't know what the fuck I want to do.
Yeah, that's no. I just had a baby, and I thought I was done, and I wasn't, and I found a friend who's like, "Hey, let's go. We need to start drinking. So we need to get out of our house. Our children are too small and annoying." And that was like, "Oh, let's take a class." And that's what we did. We took a class to escape our family.
There's a lot of people out there that would be like, "Oh my God, that's terrible." I'm like, but you know what? I kind of feel you on that. I love my kids to death, but and this is something no one ever talks about. It's like, yeah, there's that other part of it where you're like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" You know what I mean? I feel you. So you took a class, like a writing class,
Yeah.
and you were like, "Oh, I like doing." Like, what did you had you been a writer? I don't even mean like a professional writer. Did you write when you were a kid? Like,
No,
were you always like, that's how I express myself?
nope. Nope.
Oh,
No diary. No nothing. That
you were
was
like, I'm bored. I'm going to take a class. I'll take a class in writing. And you're
well.
like, oh, okay.
I did it with a friend who was like a poet, and so she was like, poetry. And I'm like, yeah, I'll write something, but I'm not writing poetry because that's just not my groove. And so she's like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll do a different class. And so we were in this other class, and it was a novel writing class. And it was like a hybrid. So it was at a community college, and our teacher was this serious writer who had published a lot of stuff and lived a crazy, crazy life, and was basically out in Arizona just.
I don't know. You said serious
enjoying.
writer, and I just got a picture of somebody who was like balding, wore horn rimmed glasses, and smoked a pipe, and just scowled all the time. That's serious.
No glasses. Pipe would have been weed, and he'd been like a hairdresser. He'd been in prison. He'd lived the life that he'd lived the life that he could just write about anything that happened into his life, which is what he did. And so he was in Arizona and he was bored and taken. I don't know how long he was gonna. He just decided to be here. I don't know, like 2 years or something. And during that time, so he's like, "Oh, I'll just go teach a class for fun." And that's so, it's like so weird how it ended up that way. But he, I don't know, I wrote like probably a third of a book, and he goes, "You better come back because this is good and you can get published." I'm like, "Meh." And he's like, "No, you should." And I'm like, "Well, I'm having fun." And then I went back, and my friend was like, "Nah, my kid's going into football. I'm not coming back." And so I kept going, and then that was it. And everybody said, "Oh, you can't get an agent, you can't do this." And I was like, I'll give it a whirl. If I don't get it, I'm not going to be heartbroken. And maybe that was part of it. Like I hadn't invested my total worth in it. So because I wasn't afraid,
That
no,
is a key point. That's a really key. Yeah. You weren't like, "Oh, I have to write or I don't eat." You're like, "Whatever. I'll just do this thing." And I think maybe that helps with the flow of it instead of the fear of not succeeding or the fear of like I can't pay my mortgage
Yeah,
or
that
doing it for some other reason, you know what I mean?
yeah, that's what got to me when I was writing. Just yeah, I can read it, and yeah, I can see there's some skill level involved, but just that crippling fear of rejection. You know, I know it's in my head, but I've never been able to shake it. At least not completely.
I'll do that.
I played a lot of sports, and I was always someone who responded to the coach that was mean. so, so like in that way, I guess I was in the perfect class because our teacher was pretty not nice. I mean, he was blunt, and there's a lot of people who are writing, doing, very, I don't know, smell of the road at dawn and in the rain and all that, that very, I don't know. It's
That
wrong.
whole
It's
that
wrong.
whole Proust thing with 50
Yeah,
pages of
but
what the
yeah,
road smelled like.
yeah, and then you kind of, so like I feel like I kind of sound like a jerk when I say some stuff like that, but it's a learning process, and so what sounds good to you in your head and what looks good to you on the page is not really what everybody else thinks looks good. But I mean, you're learning to figure that out. But if you aren't willing to let someone tell you what's wrong with it and not be upset about it. I mean, I guess that was my thing. It's like a lot of people believe that they can tell a story because they can tell a story of what happened to them to their friend. Like, "Oh my God, I was at work today and this guy," that kind of thing. And so in your brain, you feel like you know how to tell stories because you relate events to people all day long. Everybody does. And so, but that's kind of where writing is different from just relating what happened. And if you believe that you don't know what you're doing, you're more open to having someone help you figure out what you should be doing. And I think that that's a piece that a lot of people have a problem with. And you can see it in writing groups all the time. And it's really important to find writing group where you find people who are helpfully critical and kind of on your same level, not necessarily level of writing, but level of thought process. And with that, for me, I never take anything that someone says personally. And a lot of people say that, but I really mean it because I've like given myself an out. And so my personal out is this. If I write something and I would say, "Hey, VC, man, check it out. What do you think?" And he'd be like, "Oh," I'd be like, "Don't hold back." He'd be like, "Your character's a dick. I don't like him." So to me, instead of going, "You hate my book, you hate me," I would go, "Wait, you're supposed to really like that guy. So obviously, I'm not communicating that this guy's really cool and you should like him. So where did my message go wrong?" Rather than my ideas are bad. Well, yeah, my ideas absolutely can be totally bad and horrible. I don't let myself think that way. I just think the message that I want this person to take away from what I've written isn't coming through the right way. So that's how I want to know what's wrong with my stuff. And I don't feel bad when people tell me, if that makes any sense.
It does.
No, it
It's probably a big hurdle for a lot of people who might be thinking about writing. Like what you said a minute ago was totally spot on. Everybody, you know, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people think that you're right, they think they can tell a story. Like I can sit with a friend of mine or an acquaintance, whatever. I can relay a crazy story, and I think I do a good job of that verbally, but if I put it down in writing and it isn't going to be something that speaks to the reader, then it isn't going to hit fallow ground. And I feel like that might be a big stumbling block for a lot of authors.
that's it's interesting that you said that because I'm rather the opposite. When I have to talk to people, you'll notice that like I'm doing it now. I have pauses and sometimes I stutter. I'm a lot better on the page than I am in person. But
That's what all the girls say.
but Heyo. Anyway,
That was
That's
not.
what she said. Hi-oh.
and and I combine that again with the. I don't want to say it's a crippling sense of rejection. I would have said that 35, 40 years ago. I'm old enough now to where if I get criticized, I don't give a shit. So, it's six of one and half a dozen of the other when you look at it that way. But yeah, that's my take.
There's another
Anyway, no.
angle to all this too, is some I agree with you. I am much better in writing when there is something I need to communicate very clearly, and I need to do a full explanation,
You,
so
you
that you
need to
know what
you
I'm
need to
talking
convey
about.
you need to
Um,
convey your thoughts in a
yeah, well,
cogent
it's
manner.
like some stories or some things need to be in writing. And here's why. Because when you're trying to tell somebody something, whether it's verbal or in writing, you have to factor in the glaze over factor. You're telling a story, when someone's eyes have started to glaze over, you're like, "Oh, you're like, can I have the too long didn't read?"
Yeah.
Or in writing, you're like, ugh, let me chop out like 8 of those sentences because I know I've already lost them. And I'm like, here's what I need from you, or here was my thought process. Like thinking about my job, I'm like, here's why I did what I did. Here was my thinking. Here's the legal basis, blah, blah. But it's like, it's really hard to keep people's attention. And when you're writing books, I mean, I feel like someday we'll be able to do this. You can't have you don't turn a page and have something explode. You know what I mean? You're like you have to be like, "Hey, something just exploded." But I feel like books that catch on fire maybe wouldn't be that popular quite yet.
Oh, I'd buy
Someday maybe.
it.
I don't know.
But it depends on the language you use, like you said. I mean,
Holy crap,
you
y'all.
can't take.
Books for the adult children with whom we associate these days, like flip me picture book where like a little spark thing will happen, or there's something furry you can touch but there's also a good
Oh,
plot.
I'm going to the furry direction.
Right. Well,
No,
no, I
no.
don't mean like that. I
I
mean,
just,
tactile senses, and maybe something will, like, it'll smell like a cap gun. But,
smell-o-vision. Yeah.
people don't want to sit down to a 7-course meal with their eyes anymore, which is sad. I
No, it's
used
because
to
people
devour books,
people have lost
devour them.
they've lost the ability to fall in love with the written word.
And they've lost the ability for
There's
that brain ocular connection and the movie that plays in your head when you've gotten pulled into an amazing book. A
exactly.
movie starts in your head and people just, you know,
And it's like the example I use all the time, and I'm sure I've used it before, and people have heard it. But when you think of Shakespeare, when you think of somebody telling it, okay, I'm going to say, Andy, go over there, get that thing, and bring it back to me. Now, 500 years ago, I would have said, be Mercury.
see, I would dig that whole Be
So,
Mercury thing.
what was the quote?
like
See,
like you said, we're all the same age. We didn't have cable and video and all this other crap. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like I was a weird, lonely only child. I read a lot of
no,
books.
we
A lot of books.
please. I
Even
had
into my 20s.
3 sisters, and I was the same way. I would get home, and instead of dealing with their bullshit, I would just fly straight to my room and just start reading.
Yep.
And yeah, I was a nebbish. Yeah, I was small for my size. Yeah, I got picked on a lot. The only release and the only joy that I had was from reading books.
And you would immediately lose yourself into just a place where you were the reader. You weren't that weird little kid. You didn't have to listen to your parents, or you didn't have to listen to some crap around you. And it was just like you were just in this other dimension, and it was so magical.
Until the time came to close the book, and you had to go downstairs and deal with your family at dinner. Yeah, that was always fun.
The book still stuck with you though. And that's why reading books, the tactile experience, the visual experience, and the connectivity of that's why it was so awesome.
I mean, I think it still is to some extent. I think it's harder because that whole everything on screen, like it's impossible for me to read a book on screen. And the reason it's impossible is because it's hard to write on screen because you're getting pinged all the time, you know, emails, texts, everything, Twitters, and you just are like, okay, well, I'm only going to just check my feed for 1 minute, then I'll come right back and write this part that's kind of hard, or read it, and then you're just gone. Then your brain is already obsessed with 17 other things, and
Yeah, that's true.
I
But
feel like you might need to get yourself an IBM Selectric because you're not going to get notifications on that. You know that feeling and that sound of typing on those big light keys. Oh, I love it.
yeah. I'm trying to move into dictation, but that's not easy. I'm not
Have you
wired that way.
tried Dragon?
Yeah, I tend to do that strange thing about using the character's voice that's in my head. And so when you're doing dictation, they want to learn how you speak. So
Right.
so when you start going, well, then he came over to my house, that doesn't necessarily type as if you had said, then he came over to my house, comma, close quote.
I hear you on that.
yeah, I think
So then it's kind of like, I'm in and out. I don't know.
the only advantage I see in any sort of electronic book is, um, I was watching a film not too long ago, and it was based on a book that was written in World War II. And I went ahead and I looked online, and the book has been out of print for, oh shit, almost 50 years. But using some judicious Google foo, I was able to find a PDF copy of that book.
What
And
book is it?
hang on, let me call it up on my phone.
If you tell me Willard Rich, Brainwaves and Death, I will die.
No,
That
not
might
at
be
all.
a conversation for another time, but I will die.
Uh,
Damn, I was hoping you'd be like, oh my god, that's the book? How did you
no, no,
know?
no. It was a book called Commander Crab, two B's, and it was an autobiography about a guy who just fucked around in life for the first 20 years of his life, and then World War II started, and he ended up leading the underwater demolition team at the British naval base at Gibraltar, and it was his job to pull mines off of ships that the Italians would come in the middle of the night, put bombs on ships, and then swim away and watch them explode. And this guy had to cover at its busiest there were maybe 110, 120 ships in the harbor, and he only had 4 other people on his team, and these guys were doing it night after night after night. And this movie was based on what he did during the war. And I found a copy of the book, and I was just like, it was fucking amazing. It was so much better than the film. The film is good, It's called the Silent Enemy, and it's on Prime. I think you can buy it for like $2.99. I think I actually bought it for 99 cents because it was on sale, but I think it's like $2.99. So it's worth your money and your time, definitely. But the book is like, oh geez, it was amazing, and I think that's probably that and the Nero Wolf Cookbook are the only two books that I have on my phone that I actually really enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know. I read a lot. I like Hammett and Chandler and all that, and I like a lot of. I don't know though. I pretty much like everything. Sci-fi is kind of where I start draw the line at, and I would say like fantasy.
It
You know,
depends on
it's-
it depends on the sci-fi. I mean, in like hard sci-fi with actual technical stuff is cool, but one author that I started reading when I was younger and I got super into, and he just died recently, which fucking depressed the shit out of me, was David Drake, and he wrote a series of stories about a tank regiment 1,000 years from now, mercenaries called Hammer Slammers, and the title sounds gay, but these books he based almost every engagement and every battle in these books off of a something historical, like like the Romans and Greeks did, or b something that he actually went through because he went to Vietnam and did several tours. And the way he write, if anybody listening out there, if you were a soldier in any way, shape, or form, or if you were in the military, you need to seriously find a David Drake book and read it because this guy, once you read a paragraph, you're like, I know him. I could have served with this guy, and it's that connection, and it's a connection that I get with so few authors. I'll read their works and I'll enjoy them, but when I read David Drake's books, it immediately hit something with me. I was like, holy shit, and then I think I have everything he's ever written, both in I think I have one book of his that was out of print on my phone, but the rest are sitting up in my bookshelf, and they're all dog-eared, and the covers are all ratty because I've had them for years. And every once in a while, I'll go pull one off the shelf, and I'll just sit there and read the entire goddamn thing.
There's something amazing about when an author grabs you and you're like, I voraciously have to find every single thing this person's ever written, and you just devour everything. Like I did that with Henry Miller, I did that with Gore Vidal. I'm trying to think. I know there's others. Just there's a whole. I'm pretty much. Oh, John Dos Passos. Pretty much, if you wrote a book between 1900 and about 1950 or so, I've probably found you and read you and whatever. There's just something about that moment in time. And that's about the only fiction that I read. As you're talking about things based on World War II or Vietnam or whatever, you actually gave me an idea where I'm like, there's a whole lot of stuff that has come out of copyright, and it might be a worthwhile pursuit, a worthwhile market to tap into, even if it's just creating audiobooks, because, like I said, out of copyright, whatever, but also sort of drilling down and harvesting from them, but obviously giving credit and paying homage and whatnot. But there's so much that there's so much that's been written that just isn't around anymore. If you can find it on Google
Well,
Books,
the,
you're
the, the good
cool. But
stories and the good books will always be there, but not always in the form that you think they might be. Like Janie mentioned Dashiell Hammett, and one of his stories called Red Harvest. A lot of people know, a lot of people know it, but they've never read it.
Yeah,
It's, it's been made into so many films. Yojimbo, the Kurosawa film, was based on that. Last Man Standing the Bruce Willis film, was based on that. It's just Loner walks into town, you know, basically starts a gang war by working both sides against each other. And the story itself that Hammett wrote was amazing. But you, like I said, people know the story, but they just don't. Even if they haven't read it, they just don't know. If you see what I'm saying. See, I'm starting to get all that.
They know the I want to say the archetype. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's, like Greek tragedy or I mean it we're humans. We can only come up with so much crap, and then we start sort of recycling and
Whenever anyone
dressing it
says
up
Greek
differently.
tragedy, I always think of the Iliad.
Yeah.
I always think of that one line: "The well-grieved Achaeans." Yes, yes, their greaves were awesome. Yes, they were well made. But yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I go off.
I find the whole Icarus Daedalus thing to be something that comes up with alarming
Actually,
frequency these days, where I'm
I'm gonna
like,
throw an
honey,
actually at you with a
honey,
K.
your wings are gonna melt. You need to stop. Don't get out over your skis
It's
to that. Social media's made it so everybody's like, I'm a huge baller, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I just, ugh, the hubris. I'm like, you need to chill back a little bit, baby.
hashtag Daedalus.
Yeah. Hashtag melty, plunging into the sea. It's weird to be us. It's weird to be our age. It's just all weird. But thank God for books and authors and I guess social media, even though sometimes it's cancer, other times it leads to cool stuff like this, and connections and people and resources and knowing that other people think and feel the way you do, etc.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the connection thing is surprising because I would say that, from 35 and up, if you're online, you're making connections that they would never, you've never would have made. You are meeting people that are very much like you, but you're in a different, I don't know, mental state where versus I'm 14 and I'm just online all the time talking to people that say exactly what I want them to say, or else I'm not having a friend. And they don't know how to actually have a friend in real life. So it's very weird to watch this happen.
Yep. And now we're the old weirdos where we're like, I remember what it was like to, meet people in real life because that was the norm forever.
Yeah.
Meat
And
face.
and now we're in this transitional weird phase where I think we're all starting to feel like, well, I don't want to go places and see actual people because a lot of them are really pretty terrible or whatever, and I'm old and I like staying home and doing my thing, but you come across people online, you're like, wow, um there are some people that are super cool that I kind of jive with, and it's like, oh, okay. Because I think when we were a lot younger, 35, 40 years ago, oh my God, I can't believe I just said those numbers. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you met people online? What kind of a weirdo are you? And now it's like, honey, I'm not going to social clubs and dances and bars, okay? I'm a little past all that. But
Yeah,
oh, I met some cool people on Twitter.
this isn't
Excellent.
the 50s. You can't go down to the malt shop anymore.
Right. God, I wish we could. That would be fun.
Oh God, I haven't had a malt in forever.
Ugh, go to the
Fuck me,
Woolworth,
Dad.
have
Why
a
did I bring it
burger.
up? Oh my God. No, a patty melt. A patty melt and a
Yes.
chocolate malt.
Mmm.
God, I just dated myself. Yes, I'm an old. Ha ha.
Yeah, we
Let me
all are.
go.
Whatever.
Let me
We're
I
go
don't
and
still
get.
the
know.
coolest, though.
Patty melts are huge in Arizona, so maybe it's on a comeback trail. I don't know. Here's hoping for you.
Well, if cardigans and Werthers make a comeback, I am in.
I got some candy for you.
The
Here in my
candy in Grandma's
cardigan.
dish. Oh my God, that turned into concrete 2 days after she put it in there. Those fucking chalky mint things. Oh my God, what the hell were those? I can't. God, now I'm gonna be
Were
obsessed
they
with finding.
chalky?
the white chalky mint things that had like
Yes.
a red
Yes.
streak in the center of them.
Yep. If they
Yeah.
got moist at all, they became like pull your fillings out chewy and disgusting. When they were fresh, though, like maybe you went to the Ground Round or the York Steakhouse. I don't know what you people had where you live, but you went to one
Beefsteak
of those little,
Charlie's.
yeah, you went to those little restaurants. They had the little bowl. I don't even know if they had the spoon back then because, back then they knew like, oh, lick all the dirt off your fingers. That's how you have an immune system. You just, you grab some of those little, oh, and the Chinese food, the Asian food restaurants always had those little mints. They were so good.
See,
Oh, yeah.
Unless they were stale.
if you were a kid in the '70s and you swam in Long Island Sound, your immune system is perfect. You'll never get sick. Which is why I
Or
never
the
had
Charles
COVID.
River in Boston.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know. Everything
Red in DC in the chat said melt away mints. That may well have been the name.
That is what they are.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Then they started
Chat,
wrapping
on top.
them.
Awesome. Chat lives matter. Hashtag. And we are coming up at the top of the hour, and we are going to have to call it an evening. Auntie, always a pleasure having you with me. Janie, thank you so much for coming on here.
This was great, Janie. You were
It was an
great.
absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Very fun.
nice. Thank you very much for letting me on, and I'll do better next time.
Daddy, can we have her back? Let's just
Any
have her back.
anytime you want to come on, just say the word. If you've got a project that needs pimping, we're your pimps. And where's
Where
my
your
money?
private
Where's my money?
dancers.
That's it.
Where's my money, Janie? Where's my money?
Wait, I'm writing that down. Can we do that again? Oh my gosh. Well, hey, thank you guys very, very much.
No,
Hope have a
thank you.
wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you do have a great voice, by the way.
God, you're nuts. No.
Well, yes, but yes.
And Auntie and I will be back next week, hopefully with another guest.
Let's see
losing
who
my-
else we can
I'm
drag
perusing
into
my
the
timeline.
circle.
I'm making some moves. I'm talking to people, hopefully some semi-famous ones. But
you gotta get the blowtorch on.
Mickey's always
Yes.
too busy. Mickey's too worried about flying. He's getting his pilot
how many
license.
is that? I don't know. Go after Larea then.
That's a possibility.
You know what? You could do an expose. It could be your first expose.
Maybe we should see
What's
if
it
Jem
like
will come
being married
on.
to Mickey?
No
Yes,
holds
we'll
barred.
get the women. We'll get the women behind the men of our circle. Oh,
Yeah.
they'll love that.
Oh
Hey,
yeah.
can we have your lady on?
That's going to go over like a fart in church. But anyway, thank all of you in Chatland and in the audience for listening to us. And we will be back next week. And until then, AMF.
Sayonara.